Live. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you for that. So, welcome to the Fair Oaks Village Live updates. This morning, I want to remind everybody, as we normally do, to mute your screens so that we don't pick up all the ambience noise and we can have clear sounding presentations. This morning, we will have our new County Supervisor Rich Desmond with us. And we're also going to continue with presentations from the Park District and follow it up with our FOVEC happenings and events. So, and in addition to that, let's see. I want to remind everyone that we have chat available to everyone at the bottom. So please, as you hear the presentations and you have comments or questions, please submit them to us as you go. Okay, I see Vanessa Olmsted and I see Rich Desmond.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Rich. We are ready for you. I just wanted to ask you if you could keep it to 15 minutes.
Okay, great.
And so that we can also have some questions and answers. I don't know when you need to leave, but I wanted to try to accommodate all of that in there. Is that good?
No, thank you. I have to go right at 9 o'clock. I've got to get downtown for a regional sanitation board meeting. So I'll be running down there, but thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate this. You want me just to start now,
Yes.
Bill, or what? Okay, well,
You can just jump in.
My name is Rich Desmond. I'm the new District 3 Supervisor for Sacramento County. It's good to see you. I mean, some of you I know, Kim. It's great to see you. I'm a fifth generation Sacramento kid, born and raised in Carmichael. So unfortunately not Fair Oaks, but not too far away, and spent an awful lot of my formative years in Fair Oaks. And it's I got to tell you, it's one of my favorite places in my district, that's for sure. But I got into this. I was in the California Highway Patrol for over 24 years. I was actually the CHP commander for the CHP's East Sacramento office off Trade Center and Sunrise, and that's the office that serves Fair Oaks. So, I actually patrolled in Fair Oaks and oversaw CHP patrol operations in the area, and so worked on a lot of law enforcement issues in that area. In the Highway Patrol, I promoted up the ranks to a chief, and spent the last 4 years of my career over at the state legislature as the CHP's legislative liaison. And in that position, I worked on a lot of public policy issues relating to law enforcement, which is obviously very, very topical these days. Transportation, because the Highway Patrol has a huge, transportation regulatory role, and just really, built a lot of really close relationships with state and local elected officials. And when I was getting towards, when I was starting to think about retirement, I found out Susan Peters was probably not going to run again. I decided to throw my hat in the ring because I saw, a lot of these challenges we face, like homelessness. I saw what seemed to me to be, at times a lack of attention and engagement in some of the unincorporated areas. And I think it's so important for unincorporated areas like Fair Oaks and the other parts of my district, which are almost all unincorporated, Carmichael, Arden Arcade, North Highlands, Foothill Farms, to have a very strong advocate who's going to make sure that the county fulfills its role, its municipal services role. I mean, you can imagine this district, District 3, it's much different than, say, the Supervisor District 1, which is 95% within the city of Sacramento. The county has a very small role in that district. In this district, the county has a very, very large role in these unincorporated areas. So decided to run, and you know, here I am, and you know, my stepdaughter works at the brew pub. My other stepdaughter is probably going to start working at the brew pub soon. I had several campaign events in Fair Oaks, and been involved in the chamber, been involved in the formation of the new Orangevale Fair Oaks Homeless Assistance Resource Team, and so I just have a real, you know, love and affinity for Fair Oaks. My issues that I ran on during the campaign, you know, they were all eclipsed by COVID, obviously, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But first and foremost, homelessness and the impact that that's having across the county. I mean, this is a this is a crisis on so many different levels. Not only a humanitarian crisis, it's an environmental crisis on our American River Parkway. Um, it's a crisis affecting our small businesses, and I know it's you know, Fair Oaks is feeling it too. It's not as concentrated, obviously, as it is in places in the city of Sacramento or in the western parts of my district, but it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. Um, you know, I'm someone who believes that there's nothing compassionate about leaving someone who is suffering from mental illness or addiction to live out on the street, where they're much more likely to be the victim of violent crime or suffer from medical and other health issues. And I think we need to be doing more to get them the help they need. I also am someone who you know, knows, I think like most people, that look, housing is a huge part of this, but this is an addiction and a mental illness crisis, and we have not done enough to invest in resources to get those folks the help they need. I'm on a new 2x2 effort between the city and the county, with one of my fellow supervisors and with two city council members. I'm really happy to be on that, because I think what we've seen over the years is a lack of coordination between the city and the county because of egos, because of past recriminations, and I think that's just ridiculous when local elected officials can't get together to work on a problem that crosses jurisdictional boundaries. So that's a huge priority of mine. We're working very hard on trying to make sure the county supports the city's efforts and some of the shelters, and also making sure that the county steps up and identifies shelters and more resources for folks, because like I said, this problem is getting worse and worse in the unincorporated areas. And I think for the past several years, it was kind of easy to dismiss it in the unincorporated area as, okay, this is in the city of Sacramento. The city needs to be doing more. Well, the county needs to be doing a lot more. So that's a big priority of mine. The next big priority is transportation and the condition of our roadways. Going from something that is one of the most complex issues, homelessness, to something that should be relatively easy, but it's not. You know, you all know that our roadways in Sacramento County are in bad shape. As a matter of fact, there's something called a pavement condition index. It's a general standard where they rate roadways, and Sacramento County's unincorporated roadways are among the worst in the state of California. We have about an $850 million maintenance backlog just in our unincorporated roadways, right? So these are all the roadways that you drive on in Fair Oaks. And we only get about $25 million a year from SB1 funding to work on that infrastructure. So something that is a huge priority of mine, and I've already been working on a lot, is to ensure that, number one, we spend the money we are getting directly from SB1 funding. SB1 was the legislation that passed that raised your gas taxes and your vehicle registration fees a few years ago. But also making sure we spend that money the right way and prioritize the roadways appropriately. And a lot of that is me listening to you, listening to the constituents about where some of the roadways are, and making sure we don't just focus on the main commercial corridors, but also if there's a neighborhood roadway that is in really bad condition, that we prioritized it correctly. So not only the SB1 funding, but also working to leverage additional federal and state funding sources. I'm on the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, which is the regional transportation board, and that's where most of the transportation dollars flow. And so something that I'm really advocating for strongly is getting more money to fix the infrastructure in Sacramento County. Transit is extremely important. Having roadways that are more bicycle and pedestrian friendly are extremely important. But the bottom line is for us in the unincorporated areas, especially the areas further from the urban core, like Fair Oaks, we rely on our cars, and that is not going to change dramatically anytime soon. So those are two big priorities. Another one is economic development and revitalization. That's one of the reasons that I established early on in my campaign a close relationship to the chambers to understand the needs of our local small business community. Our small businesses are the backbone of our local communities, and I want to make sure that Sacramento County is doing everything it can to support them, and especially on the hopefully soon the heels of this pandemic. Really quickly on the coronavirus pandemic, now my focus is on getting more vaccine coverage into these areas that have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic, like North Highlands and Foothill Farms, some of these areas in the northwest part of my district where you have a very low vaccination rate. So we're very focused on doing that, engaging with community-based organizations and other community leaders to try to build that level of trust and increase the level of vaccinations. And then I think I'd say finally, the last thing I'll say before I stop talking here is that, as a former law enforcement person and someone who's raising my kids here, law enforcement is something that's very important to me. And this is a conversation that's happening everywhere now is what kind of resources should our law enforcement have? Should we divert some resources away from law enforcement to other things? I am someone that has a lot of experience, a lot of, I'd say a very good track record of enacting law enforcement reforms, meaningful reforms in terms of training. And this is at the state level and within the Highway Patrol, making sure law enforcement is better trained, has better relationships with the communities it serves, is more open and transparent. But to reform law enforcement doesn't mean that you should be taking resources away from law enforcement. And that is something that I'm going to fight for as we enter into the budget season. And I think that's going to be a very important discussion. I think for us in the unincorporated area, as you know, we're exclusively served by the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. We have 0.8 sheriff's deputies per 1,000 people in the unincorporated part of Sacramento County. People in the city of Sacramento have 1.3 police officers per 1,000 people. So we already have, I think, a lack of law enforcement resources, and I'm definitely going to push back on efforts to take some more of those resources away from us in the unincorporated area, because that affects our safety. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to continue fighting to make law enforcement better. And the reason I bring that up is because we start our budget hearings in Sacramento County on June 8th. It'll go June 8th, 9th, and 10th, I believe. And so there'll be some interesting discussions on the Board of Supervisors and from the public about decisions we should make with that, with our county budget. And I would really encourage any of you as individual FOVEC members to call in. Call my office, email my office, make your voice heard, call into the board meeting. If they're, I think a lot of times we don't hear from folks in the unincorporated areas. Most of the time you hear from folks who live downtown city of Sacramento. And, their perspective on things is a little different from the perspective on folks in some of the unincorporated parts of the county. So just wanted to throw that out there too. And with that, I think I'm just about at 8:45. So I hope that was okay. And I'm really happy to be here and happy to start developing a relationship with FOVEC. I mean, Mike, I was on the presentation that you gave about all the work you're going to be doing and creating this, my impression was it's like a mini Ashland, or this kind of this theater district. I mean, that is super exciting. And I really look forward to being an advocate for that and looking at opportunities where the county can help support you and what you're trying to do down there in the village.
And just a side note on that, if I may, real quick, I want to thank you for that letter of support for a $4.2 million Senate appropriations grant. So
Of course.
Supervisor Desmond is definitely a supporter. Thank you.
We've got a few questions in the chat box, and I don't know if you have access to that, Mr. Desmond, or not, but kind of in no particular order. I think a lot of them have to do with Fair Oaks, we understand, is a small unincorporated area. And so maybe the most important question is, how do we get heard? How do we effectively get represented in the county with so many competing voices?
Well, I think, I mean, one thing is, I mean, you have me, and I'm someone who recognizes that, Susan Peters, she supported me, but she was in office a long time, and I think for a while, you need someone with some new energy and new ideas in there. And one of my biggest objectives is to be that voice for these unincorporated communities, to be a very strong advocate. But it's also, I think what has happened, what you've seen in the unincorporated communities like Fair Oaks, you've seen a lot of kind of organic groups come together, like FOVEC, like the chambers, like neighborhood groups that are all very active. And I would really encourage any of these groups to try to leverage your individual voices and speak as an organization in terms of making your priorities known. That certainly helps. I can put, so my chief of staff is on here, Vanessa McCarthy Olmstead. And Vanessa, could you just put maybe the email and my email, contact information, and some information, or the link to the board meetings in the chat? I think that would be very helpful. When it comes to the budget meetings, the best way to make your voice heard is to either individually or through the group you're affiliated with, email, send letters to all the supervisors about what your desires are, what your priorities are. And then during the board meetings, I know it's a pain in the neck, but if you can come in person and but speak at a board meeting or call in, that is extremely important. And it has influence over the board members to hear another perspective. Like I said, I sit through these board meetings and I hear, folks call in, and almost every one of them is from the city. And they're talking about that city perspective, downtown Sacramento perspective. You don't hear a contrary perspective. So even just calling in would make a huge difference.
Maybe just a quick follow on to that is, Fair Oaks has been very lucky to have recently had quite a wave of new businesses and restaurants open. And as someone who's recently done some redevelopment in the village, I can personally attest that not having a city representative to help you get through the approval process, the permitting process, the inspection process, makes it much more challenging to get things done, particularly given our special planning district. Any thoughts on how we might make it easier for businesses to open and thrive here?
Well, I mean, again, you mentioned a city representative. So in the county, you have a supervisor instead of a city council member. And the problem is, as you know, I have 300,000 people in the unincorporated area, but go through my office to be that advocate for businesses. I mean, I mentioned economic development and supporting small businesses is something that's extremely important to me. And I know that county bureaucracy can often be an impediment to making that happen. I'm someone who pushed back on that bureaucracy at the state level for many, many years and am already doing it at the local level. So you call my office, email my office, and if you have a project and you have even something that you're just thinking about, engage my office early on it, and we can be your advocate. We can be your cheerleader. We can make sure that the county players come to the table to work efficiently and have good lines of communication with you as you're moving through the pipeline with your project. And that's what whether you're in a city or a county, that's what your local elected officials should be doing, no matter where you are. is making sure that bureaucracy works well for you. And that's what I will be doing and my office will be doing. We already are doing it and with several business owners in the unincorporated area.
Well, and I also have to call out Vanessa has been a part of our organization for some time and has been wonderful when we have reached out to her. But like you said, you've got a lot of people and they're very limited resources. So it'd be nice if we could maybe get at some of the structural issues that exist there.
Well, the only way you're changing that, Keith, is if you incorporate. I mean, that's, and I don't think there's much of an appetite for that in Fair Oaks. I may be wrong. It would certainly make my life easier. I'll tell you, it's funny. I've had a lot of these conversations with folks in Arden Arcade, and you all know that they had that incorporation effort several years ago that failed by a wide margin. But from a selfish perspective, it would make the supervisor's job a lot easier, because then I'd really just be focused on the social service role that the county plays, which is a hugely important role. But it's all these other municipal services, whether it's land use issues, transportation issues, business licensing issues, and law enforcement issues that we oversee in Fair Oaks. But I don't know if FOVEC is going to work on any kind of incorporation effort, but certainly would be willing to talk with you and hear about that and what your thoughts are. But you're right. It is a structural problem in Sacramento County. And Sacramento County, I've really studied this issue a lot. It's the only county in the state that has such a large urban unincorporated population. And, you'd have to change. I also don't think there's much of an appetite to restructure things on the Board of Supervisors. It would be, that would be a tough row to hoe too. So you're going to be stuck with me at least for the next 3.5 years, Keith.
Thank you. If we don't have any other questions, Mike, I think you should be able to pull up your slides.
Thank you.
So Mike, while you're doing that, do you mind if I saw there was a question about law enforcement in there. I'll answer that really quick before I bounce off here. And
You bet.
But the question about law enforcement, engaging more, doing more with law enforcement. So COVID has made it very difficult, obviously, to make some of these connections. What I'm going to start doing, certainly June 15th, things are going to be opening up. I'll be having sponsoring community events again, and I will certainly be having one in Fair Oaks, one focused specifically on law enforcement. So you'll have a chance to engage with some of the local sheriff's department and CHP leaders directly, and I'll be doing those regularly. But if you, any specific issues that you have with law enforcement, whether it's a crime, a general law enforcement issue, or a traffic related type issue that the CHP handles, that is one added value I can bring. I have very good relationships with the local law enforcement community. And again, we're dealing with those kinds of issues all the time. And Keith, I appreciate you calling out Vanessa. She is a steadfast advocate for Fair Oaks. Fair Oaks is definitely her favorite part of my district. But any of these law enforcement type issues, if you're not getting traction going through, the normal channels of the sheriff's department or the CHP, come to my office and we will help move things along for you there too, and make sure you get a good response. And then as far as money for infrastructure grants, there's infrastructure grants through SACOG. There might be some grant opportunities through this new federal funding that the county is getting, and with the governors may revise the state budget, which is still, as you know, being worked on. But follow up with my office on that, because there might be opportunities available for infrastructure that would support, for instance, the village in Fair Oaks. And then I think that is about, those are the other two questions that were hanging out there. So sorry, Mike, to steal your cut into your time, but I just wanted to answer those because I saw those in the chat room. And unless you have any other questions for me, I'll just go ahead and drop off now, if that's okay. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to, hopefully next time we get together, we can do it in person. It's always more fun. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks again.
Thank you. Well, I do want to reiterate the support that we have received from Supervisor Desmond on our projects. And so he's been a great supporter. I look forward to continue to working with him throughout these projects. But I am Mike Aho. I'm the District Administrator for Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District. I'm going to talk a little bit today about funding and where we're at with our funding for our projects in the Fair Oaks Village. Just a quick summary here on how this is all being funded. Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District passed a bond measure. It's a general obligation bond measure for $26.9 million. It was approved by the voters on November 2018 by a 68.9% approval rating, which is outstanding. And it's the first bond measure that Fair Oaks Recreation and Park District has put forward. The three major project areas are the renovation improvements to Village Park and Veterans Memorial Amphitheater, and that's what we'll be talking about today. The other second major project was increased parking at Phoenix Park and construction of 2 girls softball fields. And then the third is construction development of a community recreation center. Very ambitious projects. So here's where we're at right now on an estimated budgets. This is for Village Plaza Park. So the development that we'll be doing actually on the grass in the parkland will be estimated cost right now at $7.4 million. The Veterans Memorial Amphitheater is estimated to cost us at $7.9 million. The furnishings and equipment for the clubhouse and Veterans Memorial Amphitheater is $0.5 million. And the community clubhouse renovation is $3 million for a total of $18.8 million. And that's out of the $26.9 million. We wanted to maximize the funding that we received from the voters and try and leverage that funding for additional funds. In November 2018, also, the voters of California approved Prop 68. It was a proposition, statewide proposition, to expand and renovate parklands and improve waterways and some other things. But for our purposes, it expands and renovates parks. Round 3, which we've already gone through, we put an application in for Village Plaza Park renovations for $5.9 million, and we're denied. So just so you know that we've already got one grant out that we've been turned down on. Round 4 is now pending Prop 68. We reapplied our $5.9 million round 4. We tweaked it a little bit, very similar to round 3. And what the criteria is, it's kind of important for Prop 68, is it's a lack of park space. You have to have a certain amount of acreage or lack of acreage per 1,000 residents. We qualify under park deficit. And the other required, or not required, but part that you have to qualify under, or you can qualify under, so it's an and or. So the park for land, and then also economic, that you have a low economic area. We did not qualify under that, but we did qualify under the land issue, the lack of park space per 1,000 people. So we are qualified for that application. So we resubmitted because we tweaked it a little bit with some work from them, and we are back in that for $5.9 million. Another project under Prop 68 is what's called the RIAR grant. The RIAR grant is a revenue sharing grant. Because the voters approved Measure J, we qualified for the RIAR grant under Prop 68. And we've been approved for $250,000 under that. You had to have passed a voter approved revenue enhancement for your district or your park department prior to the, right at the 2018 time, and we did that. And then Prop 68 per capita, every park district, every park department in the state of California received these funds based on your population, and we were approved for $172,952. So we do have that money as well. Currently, we have an application in with the House, this U.S. House, for community project funding. And this was a request from Congressman Omni Bera's office that we would apply for this. We applied for $560,000, 929. It's pending right now. We should hear within the next month or two if we're going to receive that. We did make the first cut, so we're now on the House floor to see if we can get through all of the projects from around the United States. This is to approve the ADA clubhouse entrance. So the entrance to the clubhouse, the ADA improvements. We received letters of support for this project from our chamber. Thank you, Kim. FOVEC, thank you, FOVEC, the Historical Society, and also the Rotary Club. So it shows that community support for the programs and services that use the clubhouse. The clubhouse is not ADA accessible. And so this funding will replace some of the funding that we have put in for from Measure J. So $560,000 or $561,000 approximately will be replaced with the House appropriation if we do get that approved. We have another application out pending right now with the community project funding, the congressional direct spending, and this is through Senator Alex Padilla's office, and that's the one I just mentioned with Supervisor Desmond writing the letter, but it's a $4.2 million application and also 60 cents. And if we don't get the funding, I might throw the 60 cents in. But anyway, that's pending. It again is for ADA improvements within the clubhouse, not entering the clubhouse, but inside the clubhouse, including the bathrooms, the stage, and some other miscellaneous facilities around inside the clubhouse. ADA access for the Veterans Memorial Amphitheater and the ADA access to the parks. It's very important that all of the people who want to visit our facilities and parks can access them. And so this funding is critical, I believe, from a federal level because of the ADA. The two funding sources from the House and from the Senate are both, the applications are coming from HUD, the Housing for and Urban Development Fund. So we're actually going through the HUD program to try and get that funding through the House and through the Senate. And as I mentioned, we have a letter of support from Supervisor Desmond, Supervisor Sue Frost, and also Assemblyman Kevin Kiley for this project. We had to have political letters for this one versus community letters because of the certain requirements that we had. So those folks have supported that. And right now it's early stages. We haven't heard if we've made the first cut yet, but we're have our fingers crossed for that one. And that 4.2 million could be reduced if they get a hold of us and say, hey, we only want to fund 1 million. What would you like us to do? And we'll be able to break that apart and get it down to whatever level they want to, including the 60 cents. If they just want to throw us 60 cents, we can do that. So here's a grant summary of what we have going on. We had the Prop 68 round 3, the 5.9 million, which was rejected. We have the Prop 68 round 4, 5.9 million, which is pending. We have the Ryer grant from Prop 68 at 250,000, which is approved. We have the Prop 68 per capita, 172,952, which is approved. We have the House community project funding at 560,929, which is pending. We have the funding through the congressional direct spending at 4.2 million and change, and that's pending. So those total requests that we are trying to find additional funding for is over $17 million. If we take out the 5.9 that we got denied, and we've been approved for 422,000, we have an outstanding request of $10.6 million in additional funding for these projects. What's that look like? So we have some other projects with Measure J, as I mentioned, in the 3 major projects. Phoenix Park, which is the parking, we have been approved by the board for a $1.6 million estimated budget. So we'll work within that budget to try and get that parking in. We have La Vista Girls Softball. This is an interesting project. It actually takes away the girls softball from Phoenix and moves it over to La Vista Elementary. We're negotiating with the school district right now for a long-term lease for that land over by La Vista Elementary School. And that lease will be a low-cost lease. For an example, $1 a year for 99 years. And if we get that lease, we'll develop the girls softball over there. So we'll shift about $5 million, an estimated $5 million from Phoenix to La Vista. And we'll still do the parking at Phoenix, but it'll allow us to do the softball over at La Vista. That's still estimated, and we don't have a project approval yet because we have to wait until we get the lease agreement inked with the San Juan Unified School District. We have an approved project with the pickleball skate park renovations and construction at Fair Oaks Park for $475,250. We have Strang Park, which is over by just off Madison, over by Kira Downs. That's an actual budget at $200,000. And then we have playground surfacing that we've already done, an actual of $461,232. And the Phoenix Park bike pump track, which is an actual of $30,000. So these other projects that we have besides the $18.8 million in the village total $17.7 million of that money. So from Measure J, we had $26.9 million approved by the voters. Village Plaza Park is $18.8 million. The actual and estimated other projects, which were the Phoenix and La Vista, are $7.7 million, which leaves us a balance of $400,000 out of Measure J at $26.9 million, under $500,000 left on these projects. So our grants that are outstanding are $11.1 million. So if we can get that $11.1 million, we increase that balance that we have available through Measure J to $11.5 million from $400,000. So obviously our fingers are crossed. We're hoping these things go through. We appreciate the support from the community. And there has been some concerns that a lot of the Measure J money is going into the village. I want to always reiterate that we are trying to maximize the funds that we receive through Measure J and hopefully create an additional balance of, that would be 27, almost $38 million out of that 26.9 million, but we would leverage it up to about $38 million. So a lot of hard work in front of us, but we're excited to be able to have these opportunities, and we'll continue to look for additional ones. For an example, the Padilla, the Senate one, it came to us on a Wednesday from his office, and it was due on Monday, and we got it in that quick because we know how important these projects are for the village and for the community as a whole. And with that, I can answer any questions.
So Mike, I think probably the question that's on many people's minds are, what's the timeline looking at? Because it seems like it is a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and you heard Supervisor Desmond talk about, and Keith, you also talked about some of the challenges in getting the permitting and getting everything in line before you start construction that you have to go through the county. You know, just multiply any business renovation here by 10, and we have to go through that whole process too. Right now, what's holding us up, the big holdup for us right now, is that we have a water line that goes right in front of the clubhouse from the Fair Oaks Water District. And that water line is not reaching it's nearing the end of its life expectancy. It's got about 10 more years estimated on it. And so in 10 years, that line will have to be dug up and replaced. That would mean that it's going to tear up the current projects that we're working on. And then we'll have to redo those projects. The proposal is to move it out to Temescal Street in California, out back into the road. Where it currently is inside the park, that used to be a road. So it was under a road right away, but it is now a part of the park. So we're proposing to move that water line out into the street. And we would do that during our construction. We're negotiating with the Fair Oaks Water District on the cost of that and what it will look like and how we'll do the work. So that's slowing this project down, but it's a good slowdown because if we didn't slow down, we would have to tear up the park in 10 years and then redo this whole thing all over again. So, and at the cost, and an additional cost as well. So we're working on that. I don't feel terrible about the slowdown for a couple of reasons. One, because of the cost of materials right now, lumber, cement, asphalt, steel, a lot of these things that we'll be using in the renovation of the amphitheater and the clubhouse, the price and the overall hard surfacing around the park is astronomically high right now. And it's estimated to drop and sometime here in the next 6 to 8 months. So if we can go to bid and time that bid appropriately, so we can get a lower cost for that construction, I'm ballparking an estimated savings of about $1 million if this project goes out to bid at the appropriate time. We can't delay the bid without good reason. So we can't just sit back and go, well, you know what, we're just going to wait till the economy approves before we go out to bid. The reason being is the voters did not approve us to basically make money on the bond fund, so the 26.9 million. They voted for us to go forward with projects. And that's one of the downsides of how this all works, is that you can't purposely sit back and wait. You have to be going forward. The water line is not an excuse, it's a real reason, but it might be a blessing in disguise, if you will, and allow us to go to bid at an appropriate time. So anyway, looking at that, I wish I could give you an estimation sometime this summer is my estimation at this point.
So Mike, putting on my business owner's hat, I absolutely agree that the price of construction material right now is a great reason to delay. Uncertainty, on the other hand, is bad for business.
It is.
And so it would be wonderful if we could all come to some kind of understanding of what the actual timeline is most likely to look at, so we could do more effective planning around all of this.
We negotiate with the water district this Friday. I'm hoping that we'll have some kind of resolution after that. So we might have a better estimation of time sometime early next week. But at this point in time, I'm going to say July, right around July, we'll start seeing some demolition occur. End of July.
All right. Any other questions for Mike? Then Nan, I think it's all you.
Okay, thanks for turning it over to me, Keith. Thanks, Mike, very much for the update on the park, what's going on with the parks, and also to Rich. That was really great to hear from you. So as you can tell, I'm coming to you live from the village today. And the reason for that is there is quite a bit of stuff going on here in the village. Most excitingly is our favorite watering hole, the Stockman Club, which you can see the sign behind me here. Stockman Club is getting their sign installed today. So those of you who have been through the village, there it is behind me on the truck, have noticed that the sign has been down for some time. It's been completely repainted. The horse has been completely redone, and it's going to be installed in just a few minutes. So what they're doing right now is it would already have been installed. However, when they lit it up, the cocktail glass did not light. So they're actually having to do some repairs right here on scene before installing it. We're not sure how long that will take, but as soon as they get that done, it will be put vertical and be put on the building, and things will be right as they should be. The other thing that's going on here in the village, I talked to Munir, who owns the deli, earlier this morning, and they're getting very close to reopening. It will likely coincide with the opening up of the no mask mandate, just because they want to be extra sure that they're all safe. But what's happening with the deli today is they are getting a roll-up door installed in their back private meeting area. As you see the door going in right there, it's going to be a glass door, and that area is intended for private meetings and when they have the open mic night, which they will be returning to. That is on one Tuesday, I believe, or Monday of the month. We'll get more details about that. But things are looking really great here in the deli. I know that some community groups like to use that space to gather, and it holds about 30 people right now. And that will be open for a bar service once they get the sign in and get reopened and start having their open mic nights. And then there's one more thing I wanted to share with you and just remind everyone about. We spoke a little bit about it, but with the construction of the Park District and COVID having been going on, the events in the village have been really non-existent, as you know. We at FOVEC did a social last month, and it was very well attended and really fun. And we are bringing another event to the village in just about 10 days, and that would be our village barbecue. I can't turn the screen around so you can read it correctly, but there is the poster for it. It's a village barbecue fundraiser to benefit projects in the village. As you know, FOVEC is a volunteer organization, so we don't get any money as members. So all 100% of the proceeds go to projects to support the village. There are tickets available on our website, which is fairoaksvillage.org, or you can get them at Eventbrite, or locally here in the village, you can actually purchase tickets. Walter Nash Jewelry has them. They're on the corner of Fair Oaks and California. The Stockman Club has them, and they're also available at William Charles Salon. So we do have about 35 tickets left remaining to sell. This is maxed out at 100 people. It's a really super fun event. The food is locally made, homegrown. We have local music, Matt Rainey and the Dippin' Sauce, who have won many Sammys for their music, and actually won a Sacramento Blues contest and went back and competed in Nashville for blues. They will be providing our live local music. Matt was born and raised here in Fair Oaks, and his parents are from here and his grandparents as well. So it's really great to have local talent help promote our events and provide us the entertainment. So we hope to see you at the barbecue coming on June 5th from 5 to 9. Be sure to either check out our website and get tickets, or stop by your local favorite retailer or pub or hair salon here in the village to get your tickets. And as soon as we have this sign up, be sure to come by and take pictures, and we will also be posting this on our website, as you can imagine, and our Facebook page. That's all for me right now. Back to you, Keith.
Thank you, Nan. I'm going to, just before we wrap this up today, ask those of you who are on, it's always interesting, people learn about events, learn about news in the village in a variety of different ways. And we want to be as effective as possible at making sure that you know about events like this and the barbecue and Oktoberfest and other things that we're doing. So if you don't mind taking a moment and just answering the question of, where is it that you typically learn about events that are taking place in the village? And while you're doing that, if now you have any other questions or comments or news, this would be a great time to unmute yourself and ask them live. Poll results are coming in. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to leave that open. Once again, if there anyone who wants to share any information or has any questions, let's unmute. Otherwise, what I will do, I heard someone beep. I guess we're losing folks. Sounds like it's a good chance for us to wrap this up a little bit early today. Thank you all for joining us. This will be available. It's available on Facebook through Facebook Live. It will also be available on our YouTube channel. If you find this useful, please send us feedback. If you have suggestions for how we can do better, make it more useful to you, also we'd appreciate that feedback. Thank you all for joining today.
Thank you.